You can't get elected. When you've got the left side of politics throwing money out, going, here are all the goodies, and you go out there as another politician countering them, saying, well, no, actually, guys, we can't afford to spend that on that, and we can't afford to spend on that. Immediately, as I said before, you look like the bad guy. They're the good guys, so you can't get elected.
Yeah.
So now everyone's giving out lollies, which means we've got a world in the Western world, in the democratic world, we're running up ridiculous levels of debt everywhere. The United States is now at 33 trillion. They've reached their debt cap. What everyone's terrified about in America right now is, and it should impact us, we should be worried about it too, is they're thinking of actually defaulting on that debt for the first time ever, actually saying to the people that have loaned them the money through their bonds, saying, we're not going to pay you back. Now, that would send disturbing shockwaves.
I don't think that's going to happen.
No, it's not a feasible thing.
You really do become a banana republic when the country itself defaults.
But it's a pretty weird situation because they're at that cap, they want to spend, and now you've got this deadlock in government. They can't release the spend, they can't release the money. And you've got the Republicans saying, well, no, we need you to reduce spending, Mr. Biden and Democrats. We need you to drop that spending. You're not getting an increase in the cap. And the Democrats are saying, well, we need it. We need to have this spending. So now in Australia, we've got $1 trillion in debt and rising. Interest rates are rising. What's going to happen to the Western world if we don't start to tighten our belts?
We'll end up looking like Japan. They've got a couple of 100% of GDP in debt, and they've been trying to borrow their way out of mediocre growth for 20, 30 years now.
And so GDP is the gross domestic product. That's the productivity of the whole country we're talking about before, all the value
What's the output?
That's created, the output.
Productivity is a different issue. It's how few resources you need to produce that output.
Okay, sorry, right. Okay, so our output, you've got Japan in a situation where their debt, when you say it's 100% of GDP,
a couple of 100%.
Over
a couple of 100%.
Right. That means that their debt is 2 times plus their annual
that's right.
gross domestic product.
Yeah.
Where are we on that scale? We're not too bad.
No, we're about 35, 40% at the moment.
Okay. United States?
In international terms, our debt doesn't look that bad.
Right, yeah, that's what I thought.
But, that's like going to a McDonald's and seeing a whole lot of people with their hips hanging over their belts and saying, oh, geez,
I'm not that
fat after all. You mightn't be
you're not
as
healthy.
fat as them, but you're not healthy. And the game is being healthy, not just being better than everyone else or better than most.
So how unhealthy are we, Ray?
Look, it's not disastrous. Some decent productivity growth, a bit of inflation, unfortunately, because most economies have inflated their way out of these sorts of problems, which means that over time with inflation, the value of dollars goes down. And it's a form of taxation effectively because you're losing some of your wealth. But you don't sort of notice it in the same way you do as if Mr. Chalmers raises your income tax by 10% or something like that. It's just part of sort of what's going on.
Subtle. Yeah, my 100,000 in the bank isn't worth what it was 2 years ago. So I've actually had wealth taken from me. I've had that accumulated wealth, that money that I put aside, that I worked for, that energy that I put in back then to save for my future has just gone down in value because of inflation. So in a sense, it is like a tax, right? Yeah.
So it's similar to what happened after World War II. So Menzies got rid of all that debt very gradually. And to put it in perspective, the amount that we borrowed for COVID is roughly similar to 1 year's worth of borrowing in World War II, or 1 year's worth of expenditure, which was mostly borrowed because they didn't have the savings for it. So then it took them 17, 20 or something years to pay most of that back. And it was done by the economy growing faster than the debt and over a long period of time. But that takes a lot of discipline. And the current society doesn't have a lot of discipline. My parents, the house they lived in, no one would live in the way it was now. I can remember we had an ice chest one stage when I was a kid. So we'd just come back to Australia, and that's what the going. That's what people used rather than fridges. When we left and when we came back, fridges were the go, but we still had that. No one would buy a house.